Thanks everyone for joining us tonight on navigating the changing landscape in pediatric and children's dentistry. Tonight's presenter, Scott Lauer, has been in the dentistry industry for 17 years. Scott is the founder of Simply Kids Dental Consultants, LLC, which focuses primarily on pediatric and children's dentists. The previous 6 years, he was with My Kids Dentist and Every Kids, which is part of a Pacific Dental Service, PDS. Scott was the Director of Business Development for their pediatric dental business. In this position, Scott was responsible for developing and growing 82 My Kids Dentists and Every Kids Dentists in 11 states. The practices see over 60,000 new patients and 100,000 recall patients a year. Scott was instrumental in the creation of the PICE, Pediatric Intro to Clinical Excellence program, which increases doctor retention, engagement, and pediatric ownership. Scott was also responsible for the selection of the site locations for My Kids Dentist and Every Kids Dentist. In the process, he has reviewed over 1,000 pediatric and children's dentist websites throughout the U.S. He created several tools to help increase patient experience, acquisition, and cash flow. Without further ado, here's Scott.
Thank you, Victor. Can you hear me okay?
You sound great, thanks.
Thanks. All right, great. Well, thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. And thank you to Space Maintainers Lab for allowing me to present to you this evening. First of all, I want to say I am a diehard Chicago Cubs fan, so if there's any Cubs or Dodgers fans, I'm hoping when this is over, my Cubbies are up 5-0 in LA this evening. So thanks for telling my background. Like I said, my name is Scott Lauer, and I just started this pediatric children's dental consulting in this last month, and I've been in the process of building out content and putting together this business. So I'm very excited to work with private practices and groups to help them become more profitable by seeing more children, either through being more efficient, a better marketing program, or increasing their practices engagements. Before that, as Victor said, I was with Pacific Dental Services in Irvine, California, and responsible for the pediatric business. My Kids was is the largest pediatric DSO in the country and is unique because they do offer ownership for the pediatric dentists. A little bit more, just don't like to talk too much, but just to help you understand the background we had. So with the supported offices, we were able to try several different models where some had a lot of success and some areas where we were able to learn from the mistakes and go a different direction. We touched on several different models with pediatric dentistry. Basically, there were standalone pediatric offices, there were standalone pediatric and ortho. We had pediatric offices within GP offices, and then they had what were called, the majority of their business were called co-locations, and there was a My Kids Dentist next to a uniquely named general dentist office where we'd have separate waiting rooms and share the back office, share the sterilization space. So majority of the patients, just so you can get a better understanding, were PPO and HMO and cash patients, while 2 states did accept Medicaid. There was definitely a wide range of offices that had different patient flow, different treatment styles, and different types of locations from rural to more urban to way out there in suburban in different states. So enough about me and my past, but let's just talk about why we are here. As Victor says, the topic of my presentation tonight is navigating the competitive landscape of pediatric dentistry. So why is this important to you? If you are a pediatric dentist or general dentist that only sees children, it's very important. It's your livelihood, and your business depends on you knowing what is happening now and what's going to happen in the future. If you're a general dentist that mainly sees adults but will also see children, this presentation can help you adapt to make the children's part of your business that much better. And obviously, if you're taking care of the children, the parents will be happy, and that'll help those parents to keep coming back. So at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you a tool that will help you navigate this fast-moving and changing landscape. If you and your team decide to use this tool, this will help you to treat more children and have your practice become more profitable. So this gentleman, I'm not sure if anyone knows who this gentleman is. I didn't know a lot about him before I started doing research. Obviously, the company, I think we all know who the company is. I don't know a lot of people that haven't used Uber. But this is Travis Kalanick. And as I was looking for some correlations under what he did and what's happening in the dental industry, came up with some interesting stuff. So a lot of people don't know, Travis Kalanick started Uber Cab in '09. It was just kind of a black car service. And I used to live in San Francisco, and I remember it was always hard to get a taxi there. There weren't a lot of taxis, for one, and if it rained, it was even harder. So he found a niche and found an answer to found a solution to a problem in the city. So as they grew, they went from UberX to Uber Eats to Uber Cargo to their self-driving cars now in Pittsburgh. Along the way, they have ran into all kinds of challenges and issues, right? Regulatory issues, protests in Paris, and they've even had to stop doing business in Houston and Austin due to not wanting to meet certain requirements that they're requesting, the cities are requesting. So they've had to really change their model to compete. And what's interesting, right, in 7 fast years, they're now valued at about $62.5 billion. And you know, I don't know if anyone would have thought 10 years ago that there would be this service that would replace taxis, or not replace, in addition to taxis, that in New York, on average, they have 82,000 rides a day in New York City alone. So this, to me, is very similar to what's happening in the dental industry. I mean, 10 years ago, I don't think we would have thought a lot of these new models would be here, or these other new trends that are happening. So the changes in dentistry are also happening at a breakneck speed. So let's take a look at some of the changes. The current state of dentistry, but let's take a little deeper dive here into what's happening, and particularly in pediatric and children's dentistry. First of all, it's hard to keep track. Every time I seem to go to another conference or talk to a new group in a different state, you learn something else that's happening in this model and in this field. So first we'll talk about the corporate side of dentistry, or DSOs. It has many different names, but the fact of the matter, this part is growing. 2 of the bigger groups you can see on the screen, Smiles for Life, they're a large pediatric group out of the Southeast. They're uniquely named. They play in the Medicaid space, and they're private equity backed, and they're working their way up the Southeast corridor. The other group is my former company called My Kids Dentist. They're a private company, and like I said, they're unique because they offer ownership for their pediatric dentists for the individual practice, which doesn't happen a lot in the DSO space with all the different types of models. The other area which is happening fast, right, and it's happened in medical, and we all know that dentistry always seems to follow what's happening in the medical industry. So private equity is buying small and large groups at multiples of EBITDA as high as 12 and 14. So they're spending a ton of money to get in the dental space. One area that they seem to have their fingerprints all over is with group practices that are seeing children with a high concentration of Medicaid. This is an area we're seeing them be very aggressive with. One that just recently heard about, and it's not on the screen, but it's accredited surgery centers. Now, those aren't new, but this model is fairly new, starting in Texas, coming to California and Arizona. And what's unique about this is the dentist has a child, right, and they need a bunch of work. They don't want to do any of the treatment, so they'll send them to the accredited surgery center where there's a pediatric dentist working there and an anesthesiologist, either MD or DDS, and they will do all the work, send the child back to the general dentist or pediatric dentist. The surgery center will get all the credit for the production, and the general dentist or pediatric dentist doesn't get any, right? And there's a need for this because we're seeing more pediatric dentists and general dentists that want to work under nitrous only and not want to either do GA. They don't want to see the big cases and do more prophies, but this is a need, and I think this is an interesting part of what's going on. This one too, and this one is down the bottom right. And this one is really, when you start to think about this as what's happening, it's just, I never thought I would see this. So this is where, and this is new as far as I know, right? So an insurance provider, DentaQuest, which they happen to be the largest provider of Medicaid in the country. So they bought an 80% part of Advantage Dental of Oregon, right? And Advantage Dental offices take care of an estimated 30% of the population of Oregon. So they're also a big Medicaid provider, and they have a good system in place to treat Medicaid patients. But when insurance companies start buying these groups, right? And they're controlling the Medicaid. It's fascinating, to put it one way. You know, these group buying, in the middle you have group purchasing groups that trying to compete with, you know, DSOs have large buying power. So group purchasing is really coming on strong. Private practices can get together, pay a fee, and start to get more benefits with group purchasing and other added benefits with CE, with insurance, and all kinds of things like that. This last one up in the left-hand corner is probably the one that, out of all these, maybe the DentaQuest one and this one, probably would keep me up at night. It probably will keep me up at night more and more if you think about this. So, and this is really interesting when you think about large medical organizations getting into dental. So Kaiser, they're on the west, right? So they're in Oregon and California, big medical presence. If you go to them for your primary care, right, you're usually on their insurance plans. You go to see Kaiser specialists. You don't leave the system. And they have a very good brand and reputation. In Oregon, they've been doing dentistry for a while now, and they actually have 18 locations in Portland, 145 general dentists and specialists, and they have their own dental plans, right? So they realize the overall savings by cutting out emergency room visits for dental, and then obviously that oral systemic health can really have a benefit on their bottom line if they can get patients into the dental system earlier. So what surprised me most, right, they have 10 pediatric dentists that work for Kaiser in Portland. That's 16% of the total pediatric dentists in Oregon. So if you think about a Kaiser, a Banner, one of these big groups, if they go and get into dentistry, which I think is coming, I don't think we'll know what's going to hit us. It could happen so fast. So happen to medical, I think in the next 10 years, this could be a big push for dental. Yep. We lost one here. So we had, sorry, I'm having a little technical issue here, but what we're seeing in this slide, I apologize here, my map has disappeared, but I have a map here, and basically, it's hard to see it, I apologize, I'm having technical issues here, it just came up, but this is what we're seeing here, and there's a map I had of Google Maps, and it was Vista, California, right? And I've noticed in the last 6 years, I've seen a drastic increase in the number of pediatric and children's dental offices in popular areas. I've studied these areas throughout the country, and when I first started looking at this 6 years ago, there were 1 or 2 offices within 5-mile radiuses in really popular areas and markets. But in this area, north of San Diego, Vista, which you can't see, there's 7 offices within this area. And we know that there's about 11,000 kids in Vista ages 0 to 11. Now, they're going to come from a little farther out than just Vista, right? They'll travel. But even with that number, it's still a low number for this many offices. We also know that a lot of these offices, the majority of them are not accepting Denti-Cal, which is Medicaid in California. So basically you take away 43% of those kids now that could be potential patients. We also know that, you know, Dr. Joel Berg, pediatric dentist and dean of University of Washington, has said that 70% of kids are being seen by general dentists, and that could be an adult dentist, that could be general dentist that's seen by kids. So this is another area to wonder, how are these offices doing when you know all the different factors affecting them, right? We know pediatric and children's offices have to see a lot of kids to achieve the daily production goals, to break even, and to become profitable, right? So all of these, when you look at this area, which is similar to areas throughout the country, we're seeing increases in practices where the patient count may or may not warrant another pediatric office there. We've discussed a lot of the challenges we've seen so far that have been impacting pediatric and children's dentistry. Now I'd like to focus on some of the solutions that can help a practice better understand their business, increase patient acquisition, and improve the experience engagement for the child and the parent. When your entire team is focused on these crucial 3, you will have a great pediatric office that is the pediatric practice of choice in your local community. We'll look at specific activities that your office can do to get better at the crucial 3. Now, when we've analyzed offices, private offices, offices within DSOs, what we've seen is that a lot of offices are doing one or two of these really well, but it's rare to see offices that are doing all three of these well. So we start with the basic, which is pretty much the foundation, right? When we think of the measurement, you know, knowing your goals and key metrics are essential to having a strong and successful practice, right? As the owner, you're not only the CEO of your practice, but you also have to be the CFO. And when we ask, it's usually the first questions we'll ask, right? Can you tell me what are your goals for your practice for today? What are they for the month? What are they for the year? And a majority of a lot of the practices cannot tell us what they are. They'll have some kind of number, but it's not solid. When the whole office really has to understand the numbers that are going to make it cash flow and make it a healthy business, right? Not just the doctor or doctors, but the office manager, the staff. Too many offices, like we said, can't tell us what their goals are. And some just open questions, right? Do you have a budget? Do you have daily and monthly revenue goals? Does the office, when you have those goals, right, does the office know what to do to accomplish these goals? We recommend always having goals, right, and having them broken down into weeks, days, months, and then we want to set those goals high, but make sure that they're achievable. And remember, goals that are not written down are basically a wish, right? Without something written down and without a plan to achieve them, you're kind of wishing, just throwing it out there. So once you know your budgeted goal, let's just example, right? Let's say you want to do $1 million in revenue for the year, and we break that down to about $80,000 a month, right? You have that number, it's your budgeted number. You're going to need to set some other goals to help you achieve these numbers. In my experience, these three on the screen right now are the most important when it comes to pediatric and children's dentistry. And just some more open-ended questions, or questions that you can answer to yourself. How many patients do you need each month, right? What's your goal? Is it broken down by non-Medicaid and Medicaid patients, right? Are there bonuses paid out for hitting new patients? You know, a lot of it is against the law to incentivize employees for acquiring patients that are covered by a Medicaid plan, so this is something you have to consider. Let's just start with that new patient bucket. Everyone knows how important this number is to a pediatric practice. It's similar to a bucket with a big hole in the bottom, right? There's going to be all kinds of factors to why patients and parents will leave the practice, right? They age out, they want to go to an adult dentist, they move away, there may be HMO age limitations, they may get referred to you for treatment only, but they're constantly leaving the practice. That's why that new patient number, unlike general dentistry where it's important but not as important because of the amount of patients you need, this number is essential. This number definitely needs to be static. And we have to have a plan in place to keep that new patient number consistent, right? We know there's going to be seasonality in pediatric dentistry, right? We know September is going to be really slow. We know March is busy and July and August are busy, but overall we need to know how to deal with seasonality and how to keep that number going. The second number to attack is the recall percentage, right? This pediatric practices are only as good as their recall program. There's different types of practice, right? Some are more treatment heavy depending on the patient mix, but the majority of practices need to have that annuity type business coming back day in and day out. So this last one is called the third. We're going to look at patients per day. And to me, this is probably out of all these ones that it's the easiest to figure out, but it's something that you definitely need for pediatric dentistry. In general dentistry, right, there might be a big implant case, there's a big crown case that can help get you, and you need to see less patients. But with pediatric dentistry and general dentistry for children, we know we need to see a lot of kids. So how many patients do you need to average a day to break even? Can you tell me, if I asked that right now, can you tell me those answers, right? And I'm sure a lot of you can, but how do you go about figuring that out? So how I recommend this patients per day is to know what number you need is you take your last 3 months of what you collected, you take your number of patients seen for each month, and that's treatment, that's recall, and that's new patients, and you add those up for each month, you divide it by the total revenue. You will get your average revenue per patient. You average that out for 3 months, and then you can see, you multiply that by the number of patients for the production number you want to hit for that day, and then you can say, okay, if I hit 30 patients, I break even. If I hit 40, my income will be this, and so on. Only you will know those numbers, but if you have that in place, it's you at least have it, you know what it is, right, and you know what to shoot for. A great tool is for offices, and we've started using this more and more, is to have these 3 numbers written down. And I'll show you later in the presentation of how to make it nice and pretty and really make it professional looking. But if you have 3 numbers, and just say, for example, we want to do 90 new patients a month, we want to hit 75% of patients recall percentage, and we want 38 patients per day. And if you have each one of those numbers on a nice sheet with your logo, and below one, each number is 4 activities that can help you achieve that number. And that's posted at the front desk. That's posted in the lunchroom. And constantly the whole office is updated, because to achieve these 3 numbers, you need an entire team effort to get patients back in the door, to have a great experience, to keep word of mouth going for new patients, and, right, to be more efficient to increase your patients per day. So the more the entire office sees these numbers, the more they will be reminded of trying to achieve them. And then you can also set up incentives to help the office go about achieving these 2. So the measurement part, right, is always the one that's probably the least popular, but to me it's probably the most important when you think about just building the foundation for your practice. The P&L. So when you get your P&L from your accountant, for last month, I think it's great if you look at it, right? You have to know levers to push and pull to make these numbers fluctuate, decrease, or increase, depending on which ones we're looking at. But I think a great way to help you achieve a strong P&L is to have your office manager fully understand it, and then they can have a positive impact on the outcome of the office. Your accountant can even prepare this in a more user-friendly version that's easily understood by your office manager or your operation team. But if they're incentivized to keep costs in line and achieve their budget, they will want to take a more active role in managing the different levers that need to be pushed and pulled to get the results that you need. So question for you, and you can think about this. So out of all these different P&L categories, which one can an owner impact, owner dentist, and then which ones can an office manager impact? So think about that. If you want to discuss it at the end, we can. But there's definitely, when an office manager is focused on, say, SG&A, right? They have a set marketing budget. They know what they need to spend, and they know they can't spend more than that. They know that number. When they don't have a marketing budget, or they don't know what their non-clinical costs should be with too many assistants, right, then just kind of going out there and hoping for the best. But when we know these numbers, they know where they have to be in line and how to achieve them. So for this next slide, just first I want to say I have no arrangement with this company, or I just saw this about 6 months ago, and I thought it was really, I liked it so much I thought it would be worth sharing with presentations and with offices that I talk to. This is a company called Dental Intel, and DSOs do a great job of, one second here. Excuse me. DSOs do a great job of having metrics and numbers and KPIs, key performance indicators, visible, but I haven't seen anything that's done as well as this out there in the dental industry. This is a company out of Utah, and it's one of the best new tools that I've seen to help an office measure and keep track of stats and metrics. The nice thing is these are real-time statistics that work with your practice management software, most of them. And it's a great way for private practices to compete and start thinking like a bigger practice. This is, right, when you have these out there day in, day out for the whole office to see, you have just you're very, you're transparent, and you're all working towards common goals. So just a few things, I'll go with what they cover, right? So they, what you get with Dental Intel, right? They have unscheduled active patients, how to get them back, access to your own. You have a data analyst that works for Dental Intel that'll help you with these and train your staff. They go by production, by provider. If you have multiple providers, they'll show you each production. and they'll show you year-over-year growth. They look at restorative diagnostics, hygiene diagnostics, and how well your case acceptance is. And this is still very important for pediatric dentists. We see this a lot with young pediatric dentists that struggle with getting parents to do what's best for the child. New patient growth and attrition, right? Have a call list that'll help you get those patients in that aren't rescheduled for their recall. Hygiene reappointment percentage, and then no-shows and cancellations. And the nice thing is it also works with QuickBooks, and it helps you get a feel for your financials, and that'll help even more with your P&L. And it does collections. And I normally don't talk about businesses when I do these presentations, but I really think this tool is something that goes well with measurements, and it's a tool that can really help you. So just for your information and FYI, so this they told me that it's the cost for this is a one-time investment of $1,000 to set it up per location. And then if you have 1 or 2 offices, it's $499 per month and a month-to-month agreement. It works with Dentrix, EagleSoft, and if it's open dental, there's more to it, and you have to pay a little more. But I think this is something that, if you're interested, I would go to their Dental Intel website and just try to get up a webinar set up. But I think this is where dentistry is going, and this is a tool that can help you get ahead. So we're done with our numbers piece, and we're also now on to our marketing piece. This with pediatric dentistry, right? Depending on what area you live in, it's usually the same, right? I have a 7- and a 5-year-old, and flag football, I'll see a pediatric dentist and the local ortho group. They're there at the table. They're passing it out, right? We think of them when all different, the pediatrician we work with, right, works with one of the pediatric dentists here, but they're involved in girls softball. They're involved in soccer. I mean, you name it, they want to be where elementary kids are and kids earlier. So how are you driving your brand in the local community? If you're asked, what's the perception of your office within the local community? And this could be pediatric, general, or whatever type of office you have. So this is kind of the map I was showing in the first one that didn't come up, so I apologize for that. But this is, I use Google Maps a lot, and it's called, there's Google Maps and there's Google My Maps. So this is something, to me, that is, Google has gotten so great for businesses. There's so many tools now that are free that can help you do what you need to do to be successful. So what we're seeing here, when practices are trying to get more parents and children in their front door, you know, they'll want to spend more money. It could be SEO. I don't know about you, but I get, 4 or 5 emails or LinkedIn requests, right, with dental SEO experts. Everyone's an SEO expert. Everyone can help you get up to the top on the search engines. I don't understand that, but I know that there's a lot of people claiming to be experts. So if you're spending all this money on flyers, on ads, on setting up a table at a community fair, it can be expensive. And if it's done incorrectly, it can be a waste of money. So when you're marketing your practice, there's all these potential referral systems right outside your door. So in Vista, the same map, there were 7 pediatric offices in this area. But if you look here, there's tons of potential customers that could, potential businesses that could send you patients. We always start with pediatricians, right? And then you start with OBGYNs, and then there's schools, and then there's, there's all different types of schools, charter schools, Catholic schools, private schools, public schools. You have, and then I'd even put, there's baseball, softball organizations, and when you think about it, this is a low-cost way to build your practice. I have a sales background for many years, and right, we always want to go and spend more money, but if you want to get out there and really build your business, having your office manager set up these calls for you, because when you're out there talking to an OBGYN or a pediatrician, you're not only selling your practice, you're selling you. They want to see who they're going to send their potential children to see for dentistry. And this is an area that we see, well, a lot of times pediatric dentists or general dentists do well clinically, but getting in front of people to sell themselves isn't easy. So I always recommend, if you're going to go out there, meet a pediatrician, bring lunch for their staff, but have a little spiel down, right? Have some slides, have some handouts, and I'll show you how to make some great handouts, low cost, but have something, and make sure you tell what separates you, because that really is about, it's about selling yourself in your practice. But once you get involved with a pediatrician or even an OBGYN, boy, it will reap benefits for years and years to come. The only thing I'll say too with this, right, your time as the clinician is very valuable. So the more work you can do, the office manager, the front desk person can put this together for you, set up calls for you, try to get you appointments, and have them come with you, the easier it is. You don't want to be putting this together by yourself because your time per hour is worth too much. So the other thing too, remember, it's not just dropping off some cookies, right, and leaving. Oh, I dropped them off, and used to get that a lot from my sales rep. So I stopped by. Well, did you talk to anyone? No, they were busy. It might take a few times to go back to either and get in front of a pediatrician, but if you think about what a pediatrician can do for your business or an OB/GYN, it may be worth you taking them to dinner, right? Getting to have a close relationship with them because they, right, they're the initial gatekeepers of children and babies. It's just a quick story too with this. So my previous job, right, there was a couple practices in Missouri, and both practices that didn't accept Medicaid, so they had to really go out and hustle for patients. They didn't have a stream coming in the door. And the other thing they didn't have is a lot of marketing money, right? They didn't spend a lot of money on their marketing plan. But the pediatric dentist was just out of her residency. Her husband was a surgeon, so she was very comfortable in the medical space, the MD space, and she went out with her office manager, and they called on every one of these pediatricians and OB/GYNs. And what was remarkable, they started off very low new patient counts. By month 4, they were month 6, they were starting to average 150 new patients a month, and those are PPO, HMO, cash patients. The other office was closer to Kansas City. Now, they didn't go at this as hard and didn't have a formal plan in place, but they decided to hit some of the local restaurants. They ended up partnering with Chuck E. Cheese, which are around a lot of the offices, and they would pay a few $100 to get the Chuck E. Cheese mascot to come out with them when they did their OHIs, fairs, get them to the booth, pass out Chuck E. Cheese stuff. It became so popular that Chuck E. Cheese would call them. They would work together on a partnership. And this office was, which surprisingly, they were averaging 120 patients not too far after they were open. Both low-cost ways to the old school way of gaining new patients. So this is something, is keeping on the theme of marketing. We are going to talk about 2 sites that I've been using a ton of. And as you know, someone's trying to start a small business, and as like yourself, a small business owners, what's happened over the last 10 years has been phenomenal because we're seeing all these tools that you can use to build your business at a much lower cost. The old days, you'd have to go build a website, go meet with someone, spend thousands and thousands of dollars. So I'm using this company. It's called this site called Upwork, and it's really a site where you can outsource everything from having a website. You can have a landing page. If you don't know what a landing page is, I would ask your SEO. They're a great way to get new customers. You can have animated videos made for your website, but how it works is you create a request for the services that you want, and independent contractors from around the world will bid on it. The nice thing about this, they're all ranked, they're rated, and they have reviews from their other customers. I've used this to create spreadsheets to build currently my website is being built in Pakistan, and we communicate over Skype on video, and we talk about the changes, and it's probably going to cost around $1,000 to get a very nice website built. This second site is one that I've probably been a little bit too addicted to, but I don't know if you've heard of this site, but it's called Fiverr, and it is really a cool site. And when you're looking for things to try to build whatever type of practice you have, this is a site that can help you, and it's going to separate your practice. So it can really it'll assist you in your marketing plan. So on this site, you can spend as little as $5 for some kind of task that you'd like done, and it'll create animated videos to explain what they call explainer videos to explain what you do. You could get a nice $200 video camera, shoot a 3-minute piece on yourself to have on your website, and they'll edit it for you and put your logo or design a logo for you and embedded in the video. It looks very professional. It's done by people in different parts of the country, and they even have it done locally in the U.S. So I will tell you, and I'll show you something that I had done on this after this, but there's so many instruments now that can help you separate you and your practice from your competition. So this piece right here, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure, there's some noise on the back. Victor, so I don't know what happened there, but this is a site I had built on Fiverr, and this is something I'm going to have on my website and have on YouTube, and this cost $65. So I had to give them the script, told them what I wanted, and took a few revisions, but think about this, $65. You know, it's you can be the judge. Oh, let's go back here.
The pediatric and children's dental market is becoming more competitive by the month. Popular areas are seeing an increase in the number of practices that see children. 6 years ago, there were 2 practices in a 5-mile radius. Today, there are sometimes 7 and 8 pediatric and children's dentists in that same area. Also, there are only so many potential patients that are ages 0 to 11 in your area. And if you decide not to accept Medicaid patients, this could make that potential patient number decrease by up to 40%. What are you doing to separate your practice from the competition? How are you and your team engaging the child and parent to create an experience that keeps them coming back every 6 months? How are you measuring key metrics to drive your business? These are just a few of the questions that pediatric and children's dentists have to answer to be successful in this challenging and competitive environment.
So that is something that, for me, is $65, right? I think about having something like that on the video, or using a Facebook ad to lure people to look. Facebook ads work really well, and you can really control how much you spend, but having them go to a site like that where you get them to sign up, you get them to come in for a new patient exam. These are just tools in this day and age that can help you. And what used to cost thousands, hundreds of dollars, and now thousands is very affordable. So we talk about this last part. We've talked about measurement, we've talked about marketing, and now we're going to touch on engagement. How important is the experience for the child and parent? For pediatric and children's dentists to be successful, they have to please a child and sometimes 2 parents on each visit. How do you ensure that your office will be providing a phenomenal experience for each child and parent? There are so many different actions and touch points that are needed and that go into driving a great experience from the office. The actual new patient exam may only be 45 minutes, and the recall appointment will be around 30 minutes. In this small amount of time, how can you ensure that there's a top-notch experience that will keep mom bringing the child back every 6 months? Let's explore what goes into providing that great interaction with your team and the child and parent. And before we do, we just talk a little bit, we touched on Uber, but Uber is a company that I, used to rent. I travel a lot for work and would rent a ton of cars. Now it's just so much easier with Uber. The cost is sometimes less, but the service is so good, I prefer Uber. And how do they do it so well, right? So they always say, this is from when you did a little research on Uber, right? The success lies in doing little things for the customers, but impacting their lives in a big, big way. In Uber, we talk about 4 dimensions of magic. Give people their time back, bring calm to their daily lives, bring people joy and help them save money or help them get a lot for their money. It's a simple way to gain customer loyalty and expand base through word of mouth, right? And this is similar to pediatric dentists, right? If you can make their lives better, if you can, what we know, right, with parents and children, if you treat their children like kings or queens, right, they're going to bring them back all the time, and they're going to tell a lot of people about it. It's the same with Uber. How many people have told other people about Uber? This is something that I think is really important. I put this on here because I thought when we talk to offices or pediatric dentists that own or associates, right, we hear a lot, well, my patients love us, right? They don't wait long. They're constantly coming back. They're telling other people about our practice. We're getting a ton of new patients. They really love our practice. But when you read this thing by the Bain Company that was done in conjunction with Franklin Covey, they basically, people are saying the opposite things about what owners and businesses believe. And what I really think is important in this statement is, right, only 50% of management teams tailor their products and services to the needs of the customer. And I'll touch on that a little more, but if you think about it, right, are you building a practice that was built for 15 years ago with that same type of mentality or culture, or are you trying to adapt your practice to everything that's going on to make the experience and efficiency and all that better for your customers, parents and children? So I had the opportunity to do some in-home interviews with moms in Colorado that were sponsored by Procter & Gamble earlier this year. Just a little bit about those, right? So each interview was an hour long, and then the mom would invite her friends and also had children over for the second hour. And some of the parents were existing customers of the company I used to work for. Some were private practice and separate customers. Some saw general dentists, some saw pediatric dentists. It was a mix. But one of the common threads that we heard, and some of this may be common sense, but, you know, I've learned that never assume anything. But, you know, what we heard, we asked them, how do they select an office for their child? The big three were these, right? Insurance, location, and then the experience of the office. And a few other, these are, and we'll come back to this a little more, but a few things that I think I wanted to share with you what came from these offices. I've always really wanted to do that and ask questions and find out what makes them tick, you know, find out how important oral health is for their children. So a few of these takeaways, which I think can help you. So they told us if the experience was good, even average to great, the parent would not leave that practice. They would keep the child coming back, even if it was just an okay experience, right? The standards were set pretty low. What they did not like. So parents did not like when they were not, everyone told us that they weren't allowed to come back with their child even for an exam or a treatment. They would leave the practice. They did not want their child, and this was even for the older kids. They wanted them to come back. They wanted the parent to come back with them. So that, you know, that is not really surprising in this day and age. How long did they want to wait, right? They told us that 10 minutes was about as long as they would wait before they were asked to come back. Anything longer than 10 minutes would upset them. This is more to do with the ortho, but I thought as I'm getting older, and a lot of the moms are much younger than me, but a lot of them had braces as kids. And when it came to their child, they wanted information as early as possible about their child potentially having braces. So this was, I thought, a great thing, and it opened up the doors to pediatric dentists, general dentists, hiring orthodontists, right? Because you're the gatekeeper with these children. So they really trusted the opinion of their dentist to who they should go see, and they really wanted to know early, you know, at that age 7, like the American Academy of Ortho says they should have an exam. So I think this is something to think about. Do you have enough patients to hire an orthodontist in your practice? One area that they really didn't like, right, was when they had an emergency. If their child had an emergency and they called and they couldn't get in that day, or if the office was nonchalant and just kind of lax towards it, that really upset them. They would leave the practice. They were frustrated when offices weren't opening on Fridays and if they didn't get a call back. Few of them that we talked to left the practice that they really liked because they didn't get a call back right away. The other thing that was important, they liked later appointments during the day, and they also liked Saturdays as an option, which, you know, I remember 6 years ago, Saturdays were really hard to come by. They were always hit or miss and a lot of no-shows. But now what we're seeing is they're very popular with all the activities going on in families' lives. So this is Kim, right? And Kim is an office manager, or was an office manager for a great pediatric office outside of Phoenix. And I'm sure a lot of your practices have a Kim. Just want to share a little story, what I saw, which talks about this engagement piece. There was a mom, I was standing outside, there was a mom that pulled up and had a big white van, almost kind of one of those old vans that could see a lot of kids, not a conversion van, but more like a transportation van. And she had 6 kids, and I was blown away about the number of kids she had. And they were all piling out of this van, but there was one, a younger boy, probably about 5, that was special needs, and he was having a really hard time. And mom had a baby with her, but what I saw, Kim was expecting this group because she knew them from the previous times in the office. And as soon as she saw them pull up, Kim ran out into the parking lot. So she helped mom. She grabbed the baby, took the stroller, and took the other kids in the office and helped get them set up while mom was dealing with her child that was having a bad day. But when the mom saw what Kim did, her face was just amazed. And what was even more amazing when I watched the people that were waiting in the reception area see what Kim did, because they all knew her because she has bubbly and she was just phenomenal what she did. But the moms looked at like a wow factor. And I knew when they saw that they were not going to leave this practice. And Franklin Covey, right, which does a lot of training for businesses and customer service and loyalty, they have a name for this type of employee, right, and it's called a promoter. And in that role, what Kim does, Kim's making her customer lives better by offering them incredible service. It's really this promoter type, right? And I would ask, how many promoters do you have in your practice? The opposite of a promoter is a detractor. Do you have any detractors in your practice right now? It's hard to get a whole office of promoters, but it can be done. So we know, what do we know about trust, right? And we know it takes years to build trust with people. And you only have 30 or 45 minutes to build trust with the child and the parent. It's not easy. So, and if you think about it as a clinician, you probably only have 10 minutes in that office, you know, for the new patient and recall exams. So that's why it's really, you want to have a team of promoters for your practice all around you, because they're spending most of the time with the parent and the child. So how do you go about doing that, right? So one of the best ways we've seen, and through Franklin Covey, is to treat your employees the way you want them to treat your best customer. Well, you can tell, and I'm sure a lot of you know, when the doctor's upset or mad or angry, you can sense it right when you walk in that practice. But when you see an office that's happy and bubbly and it's just clicking on all cylinders, it's coming from the top down. When you're engaged with your employees, they'll be engaged with your patients. So there's another pediatric dentist that I know that, right, it's a busy practice. And we all know, right, for lunch, sometimes you just want to get out of that office, go sit somewhere, eat your lunch in silence, and look at your phone. This doctor will do that, but he only allows himself to do that 1 or 2 days a week. He's constantly taking his staff out, not as groups, sometimes as groups, but more on 1 or 2 and just him. And he'll try to talk a little bit about dentistry, but most about them, right? It's amazing what's going on in these young, usually, you know, young girls' lives. Usually it's girls. Sometimes there'll be some males working there, but, you know, they have a lot going on. And when you just sit there and he says, like, sit, talk to them, not about work, but take an interest in them. And when you come to his practice, it's one of the top 1% practices because of this. Another way that we see to help get promoters, right, is really, and it takes longer to ramp up when you do this way, but when you hire towards the personalities and the skill sets instead of the experience, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, right? You've seen pediatric dental assistants that sometimes you ask yourself, do they even like children? But there's some offices that we've seen, right, that will hire friendly, energetic assistants, front desk that can work in a fast-paced environment, and then they train them up to their position. That has had phenomenal results. And like I said, Kim's practice had a pediatric dentist that led by example when it came to great customer service. And this doctor, he always had this, I love using his quote, right? He said, if we can't make our patients' lives better in a short time that we're with them, then we don't deserve their business, right? 30 minutes, can you make their experience better? See, how are we in time? So we're winding down here. So this is something, too, to touch on. You've seen, everyone's seen these, right? Minute Clinic, Advocate Clinic. They're in Safeways, they're Walmart's, Targets. There's 2,000 of these retail clinic centers throughout the country right now. They're growing. They're not as growing as fast as they did, but they're working more on the service part of it. But I know American Academy of Pediatricians they're worried about this in so many ways, but this is filling a need. And I think there's some definite areas you can pull from what they're doing that can help you in your practice. You know, they offer later hours. Their pricing is transparent. They're in great locations. You have that convenience, right? You can come in for, say, you can come in for your cholesterol, right? But then walk around Safeway or Walgreens and shop, so you don't have to sit there and wait. And you look at this quote, right? Our lifestyles are all pretty crazy. We all have crazy lifestyles with kids, and we're busy. But this helps members get the right care at the right time in the right setting. And this kind of goes back to that slide that says, Are you managing towards what you like or your customers like? And if you can adapt some of this, I think it'll definitely help your practice. Convenience, right? It's all about convenience in this day and age. So this guy right here, well, these two little devils are my children, but that's not what I want to show. I was just happy I could do this on PowerPoint. But this phone can really help your business. And let's just discuss this really quick. A big takeaway from all those interviews in Colorado was the interaction piece. It's amazing. I'm 45 years old, and I'm old compared to a lot of these moms. But they all told us, right, they don't want to be called. They want to be contacted through text. And the dads prefer emails, but the moms really want to be texted. So all the parents told us they would like to be contacted that way. And the question I would ask, do you have a texting confirmation service that lets parents know of their upcoming appointment, let them change their appointment, cancel, let the office know that they're running late? This is a remarkable tool that can help save you time, save you money, and let your front office focus on better customer service. I recommend this type of text. It overlays on your practice management. There's several out there. I don't have one to recommend, but it just frees up so much time, and it meets the needs of millennials and that mom and those age groups, from 30 plus. The other area we see, and this is one I think that I would recommend to all offices, right, that increases efficiency. Time is a premium, right? They all told us that, right? We're all busy, dual income, single parents, right? School's harder to get unexcused absences. But when you can have a parent fill out their health history and all paperwork online, not paper, and have them do it before they can come in, think about the time savings this does. Because most parents we're seeing now are not only bringing in one child, they have two kids they're bringing in. So one's running around, one's screaming, one's crying. If they have all that done, think of what kind of experience it creates when they come right in and you get them right back within 2 minutes with no forms to fill because they already did it. And if you have a texting service, you can remind them to do it before they come in. A huge time saver. The third one, right, practice promotion, having some kind of program. There's so many of these programs out there where they can fill out all their social media stuff online. They can do it while they're in their office. And they have several different options for this. And, right, when they're thinking about what practice do I want to go to, after they see that their insurance is there, they see it's a great location, but there's a lot of practices within 5 miles. Which one do I pick? Well, they're probably going to go to the one that has the most Yelp reviews, right, or the best Facebook, or their friends are talking about it online. And you can do that easily with all these new programs. The final one goes into access. So they want that Amazon mentality that we all have, right? I'm surprised at how many Amazon packages come now to my house, and little stuff, right? Boxes for my wife's fingernail polish, right? And it's like, why would they send a big, but this is what we want. We want it all now. And they want to be able to have contact with you and your practice at all times. Now, that doesn't mean calling you up at 11:30 at night, but that means they want to be able to change their schedule online, go on your website, right, move their schedule around. They want to see what their balance is. These chat rooms now that are on your website, you have a 24-hour chat service where they can chat with someone about an emergency, right? They may say go to the ER, wait till tomorrow, or I want to change my appointment. That's through a chat service. That's a low-cost way that you can have on your website that separates you and it gives you that, it helps parents with that Amazon mentality. The more access you can give your parents online will increase your engagement in your practice. So we have covered a lot here, and we're coming up on about 45 minutes, so I'll speed this up, but covered a lot in this presentation. A big takeaway is that there are a lot of challenges and a lot of new trends impacting dentistry. But I will tell you this, even with everything we covered, good or bad, however way you perceive it, there is still an incredible amount of opportunity with children's dentistry. I saw a stat 2 years ago, right, that said by 2018, there's an additional 8 million kids that will be covered by insurance. 3.2 million of those will be on Medicaid, 3 million will be covered by private insurance, and 2.5 million will be through employer insurance. Now, we know there's going to be a lot more providers and different models, delivery systems that will be competing with, with the children, with your business. But if you focus on these crucial 3, you can adapt to the current environments, and you will be ready for all the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. So I told you at the beginning of the presentation that if you wanted, I will give you a tool that will help you be able to treat more children, right? It has 25 ways to grow your pediatric and children's practice. If you send me an email and just put Crucial 3 in the subject line, I will forward you this 3-page infographic that I had created with partnering with Fiverr at low cost. So you remember, you can do these infographics to hand out. I will email this to you tomorrow. And if you need any help, or if I can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out to me by phone, text, or email. I'd like to thank Space Maintainers Lab for allowing me to do this, and I appreciate your time. Good night, and if anyone has any questions or anything, I can take those now.
Thank you very much, Scott.